So for those who aren't in the UK, Gary Lineker is a very, very popular sports BBC presenter. And he is also very woke, very anti-Israel, and has said some deeply disturbing things about Israel. I'm pretty sure supported boycotting the Israeli football team. So not just saying I hate the government, but now Israelis want to punish them, which is just blatant racism and anti-Semitism. And he has he completely feeds into the anti-Semitic narratives about Israel that turn cause and effect on its head. That instead of acknowledging that the root cause is age-old anti-Semitism that's wanted the Jews gone even since before Israel's inception, and instead they say, no, it's Israel's doing. Israel's upset the Arabs. Israel's done all these terrible things, and so they're just responding. Which, of course, is the reality is the complete opposite of that. Israel is actually responding to terrorism, to jihadism, to hatred that was there before Israel was even established, before there were settlements, before there was security checkpoints, all these things. But here he is in an interview, and this is a whole different level of madness. He's doing an interview, and he's asked about this BBC documentary that was pulled. Now, why was it pulled? It was pulled because they had a child presenter talking about the war in Gaza. And this Gazan child, they failed to disclose, was the son of a senior Hamas minister. They didn't disclose that once in the BBC documentary. The BBC basically came under public pressure to remove the documentary, given its obvious partiality. And Gary is asked whether he supported or still stands by his decision and his letter that he signed saying that the BBC should reinstate the documentary. Have a watch.
Knowing what you know now, which is that the narrator of that documentary
as a child,
is a child whose father is a Hamas official, and that wasn't disclosed to the public, which amounts to a serious law in the view of the BBC. Would you still sign that letter?
Yes. 13-year-old child narrating. It's not been written by. It's been written by the people who produced the show.
But the BBC failed to do sufficient due diligence.
I don't believe they did. I think they just capitulated to lobbying that they get a lot of lobbying.
And audiences didn't know something quite fundamental about the child, which is that he was the son of a Hamas official. Isn't that a problem?
I don't think so, no.
And so you would put the programme back on iPlayer now?
100%. I think you let people make their own minds up. We're adults. We're allowed to see things like that. I mean, it's incredibly moving.
But the argument against it is that if you are addressing an issue like Gaza, doing it through the eyes of a child almost immediately puts you on the side of Palestinians who are suffering.
Right, well...
And...
Can I be impartial? Or partial?
You could be partial.
I know where I stand on this. I'm sorry, it's more important than what the BBC, what's going on there is, the mass murder of thousands of children is probably something that we should have a little opinion on.
But the BBC as a whole needs to be impartial about it.
Why? It needs to be factual.
It needs to be impartial about a conflict, doesn't it? And it's hard...
Does it have to be... It wasn't impartial about Ukraine and Russia.
And you might say that the...
Why does it have to be impartial about... I understand if it's partial about our government and things in this country and everything like that, but something that's going on that far away, why does it...
Because the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza... And by the way, I'm not here as an advocate of the Israeli government, but the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza is a response to the slaughter and capture of innocent Israelis on October the 7th. And
which was awful, which was truly awful.
And that full context needs to be there when discussing what's going on.
But that's not the full context, is it? Because the full...
the full context. Okay, let's just finish this up and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Context starts way before October the 7th, doesn't it?
It sounds like you think the BBC is in a complete mess on impartiality.
No, I don't think the BBC is in a mess. I think the BBC has it. It's very difficult for the BBC. I think the BBC generally does a really good job of it, but it's not always easy. I think facts are the most important thing that they, it's like that old thing, isn't it? If it's raining outside, you don't need someone's opinion to say it's not raining. What you want to see is actually what is the weather outside. So I understand why it's so difficult for the BBC, and it really is, and I feel for the people at the top, because the amount of lobbying that will be going on, and from people with that aren't very impartial, must be immense.
Lobbying. Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a wink and a nod, doesn't it? Okay, let's just unpack a few things here. First of all, he's saying, I don't see the big deal. It's a Hamas, a child of a Hamas minister. What's the big deal? He's just being given a script. Let me just imagine something. Let's say in World War II, we have a documentary being done. And what's the documentary about? It's about the war. And what it will do is focus on the suffering of German families and children that are being bombed by the British and the Allies. And it'll be narrated by a child who is a 13-year-old child of a senior Nazi minister. The documentary doesn't disclose this, and it focuses, as Gary notes, overwhelmingly on the suffering of German civilians. And that's what its focus is. You want to tell me that would be impartial commentary, documentary? You want to tell me that you think it would be perfectly fine not to mention that this child is the son of a senior Nazi minister? As the presenter is pointing out, and by the way, that is an exact comparison, because Hamas are modern day Nazis, and the only reason they weren't able to, people say, well, come on, Israel hasn't had as many casualties as Gazans. That's because Israel's able to defend itself. At last, the Jews are able to defend themselves with military force. Because if Hamas got their way, Israel and the Jews would be annihilated entirely. That's a real genocide. If Israel got their way, they would just get rid of the security threat, the people that are threatening them, that want to act as terrorists, not kill every single man, woman, and child as Hamas want to do. So then he then talks about the context. This goes far beyond October 7th. What he's really saying is he's actually in some ways excusing what Hamas are doing. They're saying it's inevitable. It's inevitable that they would rape and mass murder and take hostage and do all these things because Israel's so terrible, which is heinous. It's anti-Semitic, it's disgraceful. It's turning reality on its head. It's turning cause and effect on its head. Does Gary, I wonder, does he think that the people of Gaza and the Gazan government could have made different choices when Israel withdrew in 2005? Or was it always inevitable that this was going to happen? He'd say, yeah, well, what about the blockade? Actually, that began in 2007. Israel withdrew in 2005. Why did it begin in 2007? Because instead of having a peaceful neighbor, Gaza became a society that elected Hamas, and they created a terror network, started lobbing rockets every day into Israel, created a death cult society. And so Israel says, I think we should probably monitor what goes in and out of there. They didn't stop things from going in and out, food, medicine, supplies, but they want to monitor it for weapons. Oh, sorry that we're trying to survive. So he's turning cause and effect on its head. As this is the story of the Israeli-Arab conflict. That cause and effect has been turned on its head. The narrative goes, Israel is the aggressor. Israel displaces Palestinians. Palestinian, nationality and existence has been there since time immemorial. And these foreign Jews come along and mess it all up. So they resist. It's actually the other way around. The cause is that anti-Semitism is age-old. And there didn't need to be any displacement in 1948. had the Arabs simply said, okay, we accept what the nations of the world have agreed and proposed, which is creating 2 sovereign states. There wasn't a Palestinian state prior. There was a Jewish one, thousands of years prior. And there was anti-Semitism and Jews being killed in the land years, decades prior to Israel's inception. So don't tell me that it's because Israel was created that this is all happening. There were pogroms like October 7th, happened in the 1920s. What settlement policy does Gary think was so terrible that Israel had done then, before Israel was even established? So Gary Lineker, I always try to be generous with people, but it seems hard to me not to see how there's something sinister going on here, how there's a willful blindness to what's going on. But I don't know, maybe can people be that willfully blind? Or is it actually more sinister? Let me know what you think. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.